Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. We're live.
Good afternoon. Coming to you live from the Gildea Contemporary Gallery in Old Town, Key West. Let me bring you a little bit up to date on what's been happening the last 2 weeks. We had an opening on the 3rd of the month here at Gildea Contemporary Gallery. And unfortunately it was raining, but we still had a great crowd. And at that time we were doing a live show that was carried by the social network for about a 45-minute active show of people carousing and drinking and enjoying the gallery. Because of that, we had a lot of people who picked up that broadcast up in Miami during the Art Basel and found their way down to Key West and came in and told us how much they enjoyed it. So that's why you're seeing us do it for the 3rd time today. We're anticipating on doing a show, probably 1 or 2 a week for a period of time, just to bring you up to date on what's happening with us and some of the fine art that we have been able to bring into our gallery in Key West. As you know, we have an attitude that if we're not the best, we won't be here. So we've been able to attract artists from all over the United States and internationally. We anticipate a new show going on here in Key West in the gallery on the 9th of January. At that time, we will be featuring East Meets West. It'll have a bunch of artists from south and west of the river out in St. Louis, and east of the Mississippi. So come join us, come make sure you're in town. That'll start around 6 o'clock and go until about 8:30. And as you know, we always have great libation in this place. So just starting today with some of the artists that have been with us for a number of years now. Mark Horst is probably one of the most prolific artists that we have, and one of the gentlemen who has been a great provider of continuity and interesting art. Mark is a gentleman around 65 years old, got his doctorate degree from Yale University of all places in divinity, and after being a Presbyterian minister for a number of years, started to devote his life in retirement to art. He's always been into art, though. He started with doing clay and sculptures work while he was in high school and continued, and even during his ministry found time to attend several art schools, both up in Minneapolis where he was recently and before moving down to the Santa Fe area and being in Albuquerque. Albuquerque is about 60 miles away from Santa Fe, and as you all know, Santa Fe is like the 2nd largest art market in the country. It has a famed street there called Canyon Road, of which there are over 200 galleries on that strip alone. And it goes from very contemporary to native to a lot of art that is indigenous to the Southwest. Some of our artists that we're going to be showing in January will be coming from Taos, New Mexico, which is about 45 miles north of Santa Fe and is its own little art colony itself. There seems to have been a big collection of artists accumulate and live in that neighborhood, that area, and devote themselves to contemporary work. Interesting, most people think that to do contemporary work, you can start off doing that a child of 5 years old can splash paint on a wall and call it art. Well, There's a woman by the name of Susan Hodges that has a very fine book that puts that rumor and that idea to rest, because most great artists started out doing figurative work, very similar to what you see here with Mark Horst. And most of them have, after they've mastered the figurative world, then move on to doing things more like what we'll show you later in Tamara Kinder. Now, Mark has been going off to India on the December, January months, and collecting ideas and collecting thought process that he can transfer into art. He likes to do things that depict life more than anything else, just very casual situations of people on bicycles, of women selling fruits and vegetables in the street and things of that nature. He's very much into taking a visual shot in his own mind of people doing everyday things and converting that into his art. He's very philanthropic. He is very big in the social situation in Albuquerque, where he devotes a great deal of his time to causes that range from the Boy Scouts to, feeding people on a daily basis in food banks. So he's a great guy. I happen to have spent my 79th birthday with him, having dinner with he and his wife, and it was certainly a great and enjoyable time. And we shared, he still talks about the great bottle of wine that he and I and our wives shared that evening. So this is Mark's work up here. These are some of his most characteristic paintings. He loves this bicycle situation, and of which we've had 3 different pieces of art in here from him in bicycle scenes, of which all 3 have sold very quickly. Our first one had a blue background, and people loved it. And luckily, a gentleman walked in the door one day and wanted to buy it. It had already been sold, so I contacted Mark. He sent me an email of another painting very similar, and the gentleman bought it right on the screen. Now, up here we've got a couple of pieces of art of a young gentleman, like 3 men together. That is really his son. His son is over in Cuba presently, writing his doctoral dissertation on housing in socialist countries like Cuba. And he is working on his doctorate dissertation and hopes to get that finished very shortly. He stresses the motion figures always, and people doing things, which is what I call figurative work, which seems to be an area of art that is selling quickly these days. People love art with motion, and Mark is a great painter of that figurative type work. So besides these paintings that you see on the wall, we have another 4 or 5 of women sitting on the ground in front of buildings, selling corn, selling vegetables, things of that nature. We'll have those up for our East Meets West show in January. And so that's Mark, and we love him. And he's a great guy to deal with. The next artist we'd like to talk about would be Tamara Kinder, which is behind you here. And it's a case where Tamara, her bio, I printed up the other day for someone, ran 14 pages. Interesting lady, born in Israel, raised in South Africa, and then educated in both New York and in London. If you look at this one painting right here, I think she studied with Mark Royko, whose paintings now sell in the millions. This looks so much like Mark Royko, it's unbelievable to me. And she uses oil, but she also uses like tissue and newspaper to give a painting texture. In other words, the surface of the art is not smooth or like if somebody had just painted it on a flat surface. She likes to think of her work as more a life experience type thing, where she has traveled the world extensively, now lives out in Indiana, near Bloomington, where her husband is on the staff of Indiana University and is quite an accomplished artist himself and is a professor. And she likes to use her life experiences in her work, and she thinks she is drawing from it at all times. She gains her thought process and her inner peace that she paints from life experiences that she's had while traveling the world. She is a very accomplished artist nationally and internationally. She has a show going on right now in Chicago at the Grund Gallery, and that is practically sold out. Now, last week she was out in California, out in Napa Valley, and did a major show. So her art is also carried out in Santa Fe. In fact, this is called Shimmer up here. And while my wife and I were in Santa Fe in the month of July, we happened to walk into the gallery that represented her, and right in front of our noses, somebody bought a painting twice the size, of almost the same description, and bought it right in front of our eyes. So we feel very lucky to have another copy of close to that same work. She seems to be a very prolific artist, because last year at this time she was tied up doing the corporate headquarters in Indianapolis for Eli Lilly. She really had a busy winter redoing the whole corporate headquarters, the main lobby, the corporate offices down to the vice president, and the board of directors rooms. So that kept her quite busy, and we were having great trouble trying to get new art from her. Now, these are some of her other works. They are a little bit more Western, if you say so. If you look at them, they depict a little more of her art than she does that she sells out in Santa Fe. A little bit more of the Santa Fe colors or the palette that you would expect for an artist who sells in that marketplace. We love this diptych, which is a two-piece of art that flows together, and we're hoping to get more of her work this year that is more rectangle instead of square, like this 36 by 36. Now, it's going to be difficult getting work from her, so what I've got here, if you're interested, you better get in, because it seems to be a hot item and a very sought after artist, both from the East and the West. Next, I'd like to talk to you about M.J. Levy. M.J. Levy lives in New York City, right across the street from Juilliard, but also spends her summers up in Nantucket, where she has a house. MJ just got back from a 2-year stint in China. She, at one time, was a professor at MIT, and she was asked by Keene University, that did a joint venture with the government of China, establishing a new art and architectural school along with a new university just north of Beijing. And so MJ was over there writing the criteria for the school, both in architecture and in art. She does some very unique stuff when you really look at it. This is a watercolor, and it's basically a New England scene of fog over the water, and you can see the sun breaking through. One of her more interesting things that she does, and let me pick it up and show it to you here, it's something she calls sea glass. Now, this, if you look at this very closely, you'll see that what it is, it's the stuff that washes up on the beach. It's the glasses, the bottles that have been broken and tumbled and developed all kinds of patina and color. And this is called sea glass. And last year she sent me one of these that was relatively big. It was about 24 by 38 or 40. And she frames them very uniquely, and they're very difficult to figure out how to frame. So I was lucky that time. Somebody walked in and loved it and took it, rolled up, carried it home, and we corresponded with them and gave them a little direction on how to frame it, but they loved it that much that they said they'd take it unframed. Now, a lot of our art is unframed. And what we try to do is we tell people that if they buy something in here and it's unframed, that we will frame it for them at our cost. We'll help them select one of 200 or 300 different frames that we have samples of in the back, and we'll frame it at our cost. And of course they pay for it, but it will be wholesale when you think about it. Now, MJ is hoping to get us some more work this year. She'll be part of the January show on East Meets West, obviously. So we're looking forward to getting more of her great work. She seems to be able to do landscapes and seascapes in a relatively unique way that depict, like the fog, the sun breaking through the fog. You know, we don't have that much fog down here, but up in New England, they have it daily. So her work is very much in demand up in Nantucket, and we've had great success with her here. Now, some of the people who came in after the Art Basel made the trip, the 125 to 140 mile trip down from Miami, were most taken with her work and with Tamara's work. You know, they spent the week seeing all kinds of art from all over the world, but they thought that they were quite unique and quite pleasing to their eyes. And in fact, we're negotiating right now with a gentleman who lives in Boston, and hopefully this will be going up to Boston in the near future if things go well. So we want to thank those people who made that trip down from Art Basel. As you know, Art Basel is a major art show in Miami from the 1st of December to about the 7th, and it's world regarded. It takes up almost every bit of exhibition space, hotel lobbies, and tents and things like that that can be put out on the Florida, Miami city lots. It's just a major, major show, and people come from everywhere in the art world, from Europe, Asia, Africa, and all over. So we're hoping that that painting will find its way up to Boston here very shortly. Moving along, we've got another artist here. If we can move a bit, just down here with Mariah Sultan. Mariah's new work is going to be on board or on paper that has been coated so that she likes to work on paper. She uses an archival paper that's good for about 100 years. And as I may have told you in one of our other broadcasts, she presently has 18 paintings on the ground floor of the CBS building in New York. She is quite a unique painter and very prolific. Last year she did 40 paintings that were shown at High Point University. She had as guests there that time people from HBO, myself, and a few other major benefactors. And HBO, by the way, is using 6 of her paintings presently in a show with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on Sunday night. As we all have seen recently, HBO has taken the lead in building their own content, and they have just recently purchased 9 more of her paintings to use in some of the new shows for the 2017 year of new shows on HBO. Now, she has used multimedia. She has used paper as a substrate. She has used pencil, pen, acrylic, oil, whatever she can find, she uses in her work. And as you can see, comes off with a great deal of variety. Interesting story about Mariah. Mariah was born in not Queens, but up in the Bronx in New York. Her grandfather was a painter that went down and painted the billboards in Times Square. So her first memory of art ever was her Saturday and Sunday visits with her grandfather down to Times Square to see his work on the billboards, on the show, the theatrical shows, and that's where she started gaining her interest in art as a young child. Now, she is going to be the curator going forward for CBS. A unique part of her past life is that as a child, as a lady of 16 years of age, she started getting into TV production. She wrote a lot of the things that we all heard Howard Cosell say on television during his Monday Night Football broadcast. She has 2 Emmys that she got for producing the Olympics a couple of years ago. I had my hands on both of those, so I know they're real. Now, this last year, she only produced March Madness, which is the major basketball tournament, as you know, in the United States in the month of March. The year previously, though, she produced March Madness and she produced the Masters golf tournament. So, an interesting lady, to say the least, and multi-talented. She has been with me since day one. In fact, it was her work that attracted me to start my gallery. And I thought, gee whiz, if I can get this lady or this artist as one of my lead artists, I will start a gallery. And that's exactly why Gildea Contemporary Gallery is here today. So I have a great deal of gratitude for her coming in and being one of my lead artists You'll see two pieces here today, but in January, she will be part of the East Meets West show, and we'll have some much bigger paintings, and we'll have some of her new work, which will be on board and on canvas, and not behind glass. So come see it in January the 9th. As I said, we'll be having the new East Meets West show. This is Carmen Lee Gambrel. Carmen is from up in the Chesapeake, where she has a gallery and had one for 30 years. She's a very well-regarded artist herself, and she has both the Simon's Island Gallery, and she has one in New Orleans. And as you can see, her variety of painting styles. And she paints in both acrylic and in oil. She seems to like acrylic a lot these days, and I think more and more painters are going to acrylic as it's been around for quite some time, but the beauty of being able to, it dries so much quicker than oil, and people are attracted to it. And they're even getting, as I may have told you in broadcasts prior, they're even coming out with things like Pentel pens of acrylic, and a lot of artists will be using those going forward. Now, her work is very vivid. She started out doing mostly figurative work, which I said earlier. To be able to do this kind of work and this kind of work here, you have to master figurative work. It doesn't go the other way around. In other words, if you mastered figurative, you can then graduate to doing very contemporary stuff like this. And as you read about artists in books that are written, like Susan Hodges' book on No, Your 5-year-old Can't Do It, you know, which is a great book if you ever get a chance to pick it up. It tells you why the masters have all been figurative workers and painters before they got to this kind of work. And it seems like all the great artists have been able to draw from within. It's very difficult to understand, unless you're a creative person, how you can get up every day and draw from within to paint something on a canvas. When you think of Picasso, Picasso was a guy who had a great work ethic. He did 10 to 14 paintings a day. And I always tell the kids who come through the gallery, I say, why do you think he did that? And they said, no, we don't know. I say, well, he was practicing. He didn't think he was any good yet. So Picasso had a great work ethic, and most of these artists have a great work ethic. A lot of them devote a lot of their time to teaching. As I said, out of the 10 people that you see on the walls of Gildea Contemporary Gallery today, 4 of them devote a high significant amount of their time to teaching other people and giving seminars on acrylic. I've got 2 people here that do acrylic. I've got this lady over here, Nancy Tinkersley, who does mostly oil. Most of these people give back and are great human beings besides being great artists. So that's a little bit of what you see from these artists here, like Carmen Lee Gamble. And let's go on down and talk about a good friend of mine from New York. This is a gentleman by the name of Harvey Ehrlich. Harvey was a working artist in New York City. He's about 74 years old. He has been doing art like this all that time. Besides doing advertising and creative type artwork, this is called pop. And this is what is hot today. This is what people, they love the vividness of it, the craziness of it, and it pops for them. It has a great deal of emotion and life to it, and it lives for them. So pop art is not just a fad. It's here to stay. It'll be here going down the next 20 years in different shapes and forms. And obviously, as you see this came all from inside somebody's mind, and totally creative, and totally difficult for the average individual who says, oh, I'd like to pick up a brush or a pen and become an artist. This takes years to be able to do something like this. And Harvey is one of the best, and lives up in Fort Lauderdale these days with his lovely wife. So we are very thankful that we have Harvey on our walls today and a participant in our gallery. Now, we've talked about Gene Peterson in times past. Jean is as unique as anybody else in the gallery. In fact, she'll be here in February for a couple of days to teach over at the Studios of Key West, which is a big philanthropic operation here in Key West, which brings in artists to teach people how to paint, how to illustrate, how to do things. And we've had people from Cuba recently. We've had one of our other artists, Nancy Tinkersley, on the wall behind. And Jean will be here in February for a couple of days. She just got back, as I may have told you earlier, from Italy, where she addressed the World Watercolor Association. This is an acrylic that Jean has done for us. Now, Jean is the recipient of the Diamond Jubilee Award from Queen Elizabeth. She is a Canadian citizen, lives up in Calgary, Canada, and which is a very cold place to be today. You can see I'm still in shorts down here. It's about 80. So if you're freezing up north, you see how I'm dressed, and it's only because I want to be comfortable. And but Jean is very uniquely qualified to do both acrylic and watercolor. Now, when she was in Italy recently addressing the World Watercolor Association, she has been invited back to teach there, and she's going to be exhibiting in China this year, and she's going to be exhibiting also in Mexico. She has been exhibiting over in China at the request of the government. She will be doing mostly acrylic when she's here in town, and we'll be having a evening with Jean. Probably we'll be notifying you, and in fact, if you aren't on our mailing list, send us an email at Gildea Contemporary Gallery at gmail.com, and we'll make sure you're aware of the evening or 2 evenings that we have with Jean in the gallery, and discussing all phases of art and the techniques. These are her 2 books, by the way. Jean is just signed to do another book. This is the one on faces, and this is on mixed media. And if you're interested, you could probably gain these 2 from Amazon. So it's Jean Peterson and Expression Portraits and Mixed Media. She just signed to do her 3rd book, which is called Color. So we're expecting that out in the spring. And I hope that we have a great season with her work. This is 48 by 48 and sells for $72,000 or $7,200. And I think for a painting of that size, that is very reasonable. We have a number of people who have purchased her work. We've sold it up to New York City recently. We've sold it up to Chicago, and we are in the process of talking to some people who came down from the Art Basel who are in Connecticut who are interested in her work. So hopefully we'll have a great season with Jean and her paintings. So you can see some of her smaller faces that she does. And Jean also does very contemporary work. Besides, here is a good example. She does a lot of figurative, but she does a lot also of very contemporary work. And this again, you got to be able to do the figurative work before you can do this kind of work or this kind of work. So anyway, that's a little bit of an upshot of what's been going on with Gildea Gallery. We are very thankful to those people who've been some of our great supporters. We just shipped away 2 paintings early Monday that are going up to New York City. Luckily, those purchases are from people who have houses in Key West that found something in our gallery that they loved enough to ship to their home back up in the New York metropolitan area. We haven't talked a lot about our sculpture here, but we have a gentleman by the name of Ed, who is a New Yorker by background, lives over in the area of Naples now, that has been doing very fine bronzes and composites. And as you can see, this is a piece that he used a Olympic athlete as a student or as a life form, and he does marvelous work. It's to tell you the difficulty of being able to do that is just beyond my wildest imagination to know how somebody can do such a great job on life form. So these are some of the sculptures that we have in the room today. We've had great success with another sculpture from Colombia. And this is a gentleman by the name of Cesar Marin. And Cesar is known for his climbers. This is just, he's been a sculptor, he's in his mid-40s to late 40s. These are made of composite and acrylic, and they're painted with an automotive paint, so a lot of people have purchased them and put them on their walls, as you can see here, in combinations of 2s and 3s and 5s. Always an odd number, though, seems to be what's selling. Now, this 3-footer here is hollow. Uniquely, it's used something called vinylast, and that's very much like fiberglass, but it's another kind of epoxy type product. They have crushed up desert rock from the desert and pulverized it and mixed it with the paint. So when he did 6-foot statues like this on a building in Dubai, he was able to assure himself and the people that it would have a long life. In other words, this is automotive paint sprayed on with the pulverized desert rock, which is very unique and very able to withstand the desert. He's done this, as I said, in Dubai and on a hotel down in Texas recently. Now, what else can I tell you today?
How people can come visit your gallery.
Well, we're at 522 Southern Street, just off Duval, in between Duval and Symington, here in Key West. We're mid-block. We're just about 2 doors away from Bank of America. Our doors are open from 11 till about 5 o'clock every Monday through Saturday. And on Saturdays, sometimes we serve wine in the afternoon and have some live music from during the season. We try to have a very festive situation during the holidays. And we are always open on Sunday by appointment. All you got to do is call us on area code 305-797, and we'll be happy to give you a view, or we'll be glad to take you and your friends on a guided tour around our gallery. We love giving people a walkthrough of the gallery and giving people the history and the background on the artists that we've been able to select for this month's showing. This show will be up until probably January 8th, and we'll take it down and have a new show up. As I said, we're having the East Meets West in January. That'll be, I hope, a great show. We've already brought in, maybe 5 or 6 new artists. We've got a 150-foot of stretcher bar on the floor, which you can't see, but we'll be stretching at least 150 feet of stretcher just for those new paintings that have been shipped in the last few days. So we anticipate a great show and a great fun time. That's going to be January 9th. So I appreciate you coming by today and viewing Gildea Gallery in Key West. We're here to sell you art anytime, day or night practically, but we love the business. We love the artists that we've been able to bring in, and hopefully if you purchase one, it will enrich your life and make your life a lot happier and a lot more conversant in the area of art going forward. So any artist that sees this little program who thinks that their art fits in with us, I want you to contact us. We're always looking for new figurative work. Figurative work is very difficult to find today. The magazines have all been writing about it for 2 years. That means to me that it's been selling for over 3 or 4. So the magazines are always a little bit behind. We love contemporary. We seem to be able to find some great contemporary artists. But figurative is one of those things that a lot of artists were scared off of, told that they weren't selling. That's not true. That's what's selling today. And we appreciate your time today. Come join us. Again, we'll be doing more of these weekly and bi-weekly shows on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and a few other types of social media. We look forward to being your eyes into the art world as much as possible. So thank you for your time today. Come back and see us. Come down and see us. It's awfully warm here today.
Okay, good.
A little better?
Yeah, that's great. But